Welcome back to Access Houston on 97.9 The Box.
Good Sunday morning. You're listening to Access Houston. I'm your host, KG Smooth. I don't even think words can express how grateful I am for this opportunity. It is an honor and a pleasure to welcome to the program for the first time District Attorney Kim Ogg, Harris County District Attorney Kim Ogg. Good morning. Welcome to Access Houston.
Thank you so much. You know what a fan I am of yours. I listen to The Quiet Storm. You are the sexiest voice in Houston, and I'm thrilled to be on your show.
Oh, thank you so much. That means a lot. We have I forget what event was it where you were being honored and we took pictures.
I thought it was an event you were being honored.
No, not yet, but pretty soon.
No doubt.
Pretty soon.
No doubt. Just keep up the service to the folks. Keep telling us what's going on and keep doing it in that wonderful voice of yours.
Thank you. You know, I use this platform specifically for that reason. To let the city know about the things that are going on that they may not be privy to. And I'm so glad that you are here to talk about your community conversation series, and I instantly thought about Get It Right that you also have. So tell us about the community conversations and how did this come about?
Well, when we began our administration in 2017, we were already doing these programs that provided a direct service to people, trying to wipe their records clean of past convictions. We called that Get It Right, and it was the fulfillment of a campaign promise to try and get Houstonians back into the workforce by helping them clean up their criminal records. While the DA can't represent you, we have a number of partners that work with us. And shoulder to shoulder, we work together to try and erase people's records. Yeah. The conversation came about because people wanted more interactive communication. Yeah. Our system is difficult to navigate. It's comprised of laws and made for people who aren't lawyers. It's scary and it's expensive. And so it's important that people understand both how their tax dollars are being spent. It's important they know what their rights are. It's important they know how we're supposed to work. And those community conversations are about relevant topics, police-involved shootings, drug convictions, and how we are treating, trying to treat drug offenders rather than convicting them, trying to do something positive with them, make positive change in their life. It's an opportunity for the community to tell us what they want out of their justice system. They pay for it, and I work for them. And so as Houstonians, we're a unique lot. We like to control our own fate. Right. People want to have a hand in things, and I think that is so much better than the apathy we often see.
Yeah. Well, first, kudos and applause to you for even wanting to have the conversation with the community because, a lot of top public officials could really care less. Like, hey, are we getting the job done? Is the bottom line being fulfilled? And that's good enough for them to suffice. But for you to actually engage and be present, that is going to say so much to Houston. I don't even know if you know how big of a deal that it's going to be because that's all people want. They want to know that they are seen and that they are being heard.
I agree with that. I think that leadership cannot come just from the top down. The movement and the responsibility for our communities really is at the grassroots. It's you and your neighbor. And we who you elect are really poised in the positions you place us in to affect it. But we got to stay in touch. Yes. And so times are changing. The laws are changing. Look at how the drug laws in America and locally here in Texas are changing. The ability to get work after you've come out and re-entered the system. Yes. And then there's the plight of victims who continually struggle to be heard in our system. They are the only unwilling partners in the system, and it's hard to call a victim a partner, and yet they are a big user in the system. Yes. So listening to the different perspectives helps us know how to react, and I think that's then where we apply science and data, and we figure out what works. And if it's not working, then as government officials, we got the responsibility to change the way we're doing things to something that does work.
Indeed. You listen to Access Houston. We're talking to Harris County District Attorney Kim Ogg. The Community Conversation Series is going on now, and the next one is this Saturday from 9 until 11 at HCC and Acres Home. So last month you were in Third Ward. So I see how you're hitting each community month by month.
We're trying. We want, Harris County is more than 1,200 square miles. Ooh, so you can put some miles on your wheels running around trying to listen to everyone. And that's exactly what we think needs to be done. So from Tomball to Pasadena to Acres Home and Third Ward, this is our world and our community. Keep it local. Let's listen to each other. And with open minds. We got a time when a lot of people are aggravated with each other. It is the summertime. It's hot.
Yes.
And people get irritated easily. There's some difficulties in a lot of things we're facing. The courthouse in our world still isn't repaired. And so we got long lines again in front of the courthouse. It's crazy. We need to help people navigate our system, understand it. And I think we need their help to let other public officials know whether it's healthcare or whether it's criminal justice. You got to put funding where your priorities are. Mm-hmm. And lip service is just not enough. So we're putting those priorities in the DA's office back in the community. Those are our victims, witnesses, and our accused. We're there to keep the community safe along with first responders. But we got to be fair in how we do it. And I think that's all about participation by the community. Yeah. By the way, that means serving on grand juries. It means serving on juries. Mm-hmm. It's not a one-way street.
Right.
Our people have got to participate, and conversations invite you to do that.
Yeah, it's so funny that you mentioned that, because having the conversation with a group of folks, and they were talking about how people of color are more convicted, and especially with a jury trial. And I said, well, it says that we are going to be judged by a group of our peers, but if we don't show up when we are summoned for jury duty, then we're not doing them a service as well, because you wonder why, there's, 8 white people, maybe 2 blacks, and the rest are Hispanic. Well, they're the majority because they participate in the civic duty. We have to do our part. Yes, exactly. To your point, DA Ogg. So far, what has been the most concerning about the community with these conversations?
Well, I think people are always interested in police shootings, and the Harding Street raid by HPD is front and center in people's mind. We have a major investigation going on that case, and we try to be fair to all parties, including the police officers who were involved. One of them is paralyzed, and there really was a tragedy all the way around. But I think people expect the DA's office to get to the bottom of critical events like that. We are not the police, and we are not the jury, but we are the conduit of the evidence.
Yes.
We put it in front of our community. Grand juries, I got to say, we're seeing a lot of diversity compared to when I started back in the 80s. We had a much higher murder rate. We had a much lower rate of participation, not just by communities of color, but by women, by LGBTQ community. Mm-hmm. People weren't encouraged to participate. In fact, for many years, they've been discouraged. So what we see with the participation of more people on juries is we do see robust investigations be thoroughly examined by our community. And as a result, you see police officers being charged. You don't see people being treated as though they're different because of their status. And that's what diversity can bring. Yes. And we need that in terms of age, too. It's not like young people are exempt. We have a terrible voting rate in our population under 40. People are great on social media, but when it comes to going to the polls, they slack. And that's a responsibility we have to own. So with my son, who's 20, he's dead meat if it's 5 o'clock on an election day and he hasn't voted. I've gone to pick him up a couple times. We have a joke about it in our family, but our family votes, and I want everybody's family to vote. That's the whole. As we just celebrated the independence of the country. It's pretty important to take up that basic responsibility. It's a right, but it's also a responsibility.
Indeed.
So I like the way our government requires the participation of everyone. And by its nature, it's not supposed to exclude people. And that's what fair courts are supposed to be about. So a big part of our job is protecting the process. And I think sometimes the community expects me to get up and say, we're going to convict so-and-so, or that guy's going down. We don't make guarantees. The community renders verdicts. Judges render verdicts. We present the evidence. And that's why I say that, we're the real guardians of the system. We're protecting a process. We're not guaranteeing an outcome. Obviously, when we bring charges and try a case, we believe in it.
Right.
But ultimately, it's the people of our country who decide the fate of one another in the criminal justice system.
That's right. So for those of you who have a different mindset of that, contrary to popular belief, you hold the power. The community holds the power. So let's show up and show out. Well, not show out, but let's show up and address our concerns. I'm sorry, that was a church reference. Let's.
Some of us are out.
Yeah. Right. And address our concerns with these community conversation series. It's going to be this Saturday at HCC Acres Home. That is at 630 West Little York Road. And bring your concerns. And DA Ogg is going to be there to listen to whatever it is that is concerning you and your community. What do you get out of this? How does this make you feel? Like when you had the first one and it was done, how did you walk away feeling?
Well, these are not easy events to hold. So the staff who work for me are owed a great deal of gratitude. I'm always filled with thanks that I have this opportunity. I'm a native Houstonian. I've lived here all of my life, other than a couple of years in Austin when I went to school up there in college. But this is my home. I've lived in many of our neighborhoods. The problems they're unique, and yet as a community, we're good about helping each other. So I look at these conversations as helpful. When people tell me what they're angry about or how the system did not serve them properly, then that's an opportunity for me to lead an office of 735 partners. That's how I feel about our employees and ambassadors in our community to go out and do justice. And they have to know what's not working so that we can fix it. So I welcome that. I don't think that dissension or opposition, just for the sake of taking a different perspective, is always helpful. But it enlightens you in a certain way about different perspectives. So we welcome all the conversation, both the easy and the tough stuff. And what it does for me is just make me thankful that our city is still together, that we remain supportive and work together, that our communities don't hate each other, that even law enforcement is trying. And I think that's a good sign of the times. In an otherwise and sometimes bitter world, we do have a lot to be thankful for.
Yes, indeed. I see the tide changing here in Houston. When I was growing up, the officer and lived in the same neighborhood, and everybody knew who he was. And if something was to happen, he knows the people in that neighborhood and is able to.
Well, they knew the teachers who knew the parents.
Well,
right?
Yeah.
And so as our communities and families have changed in the way we look, I don't think there's necessarily a change in the way we operate that's necessary. I think whether we're traditional or non-traditional family, we got to support each other.
Right.
And that really does mean helping your neighbor, and it means cooperating with police when we can so that we can all be safe. And I really think it's important that we don't exclude law enforcement, as hard as the conversation has been and can be. I think reform requires us to include everyone in the conversation. And they're the ones we call for help. So as the DAs review their work and present our cases in court, then the community, they review our work. So this system of checks and balances is what the Constitution is all about.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that we're going to Acres Homes. I live in the Heights.
Yeah.
You're just north of me, so we're neighbors. And I look forward to seeing everybody out there.
Yeah, so save the date for Saturday, this Saturday, July 13th, for the Community Conversation series happening at HCC, 630 West Little York, all being headed by our incredible and revered District Attorney Kim Ogg. This was so great. I would love to have you back on the program whenever you're free, just to talk shop.
So there's so much happening and so many cases happening. Everybody wants updates on everything from the Malia Davis case to the Harding Street cases.
Mm-hmm.
We're always happy to tell you what we can. We try and not try our cases here in the media, but what we're about and how we're operating, that's something people need to know. So I'll be back anytime you ask, and to hear, to get on the opportunity to be with you.
Yeah,
on the air.
Listen,
in our hometown.
Yeah.
Way to go.
Well, thank you so much. And I want to, I actually want to invite you onto the Quiet Storm, or probably get maybe about 5 of your favorite.
I was going to say, let's talk music.
We can talk music. Oh yeah, absolutely. So let's do that. And I also want to say that ever since you got in office, we see the change that has happened. And I think that with your election and how you operate and how things have been going, you have eased up the tension of people in the community, because they don't feel like they have to walk on eggshells because I'm going to be convicted because of, said what's the word I'm trying to use here? I'm drawing a blank, because I'm some sort of stereotype or something. Like you have made this city better.
Well, I am 735 people with many, many partners in the community. You're just one of them. We're all trying. I really believe we're brothers and sisters at the end of the day. Indeed. And that we want the same thing. We want to be safe and we want to be happy. So as a mom, and not just a DA, that's what I want. Imagine America having Houston as our safest city. That'd be great for quality of life. That'd be great for business. And I think it's ultimately what people want. There's not many people in our community who really prey on others, and I think none of us are for that. And so we'll work together to separate those individuals who just aren't gonna play by the rules and are gonna hurt people, and everybody else we're gonna try and help through this system, change their behavior when it's aberrant, help them get the help they need, and move into 2020 with a eased up attitude between law enforcement and the community. No more looking over your shoulder. That's what we're looking for. We should be looking ahead and out for each other.
Absolutely, and we will get there. I will say this before we go. Houston restored my faith in humanity during Harvey. So when Harvey happened, and I was back home in Ohio because that weekend that was the big fight, the Mayweather McGregor fight, and so my brothers were throwing a fight party, and so I was like, oh well, I'm gonna fly home for the flight party. They're like, no, I really am. And so that Friday morning it was raining, and our plane was stopped. I'm like, listen here, hurricane, you are not going to stop me from going home to see my family and do this fight. But then the hurricane happened, the flooding happened, and I was stuck back home in Dayton for 8 days because I couldn't get back into Houston. But watching how Houston was helping each other in real time on CNN and MSNBC and all of the other networks that I could get while in Dayton, Ohio, it really restored my faith in humanity, because just a few weeks ago was that BS in Charlottesville. And so, my spirit
So
was
sad,
a little,
man. So sad. Hatred is so, it seems so powerful. And I think we just can't give it that power.
Yeah.
So I agree with you, watching people of every type of background help each other with boats, planes, and trains.
Yes. So I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because what I saw on CNN, it was an older white man who had a boat who was saving a I don't know if they were Sheikh or a Muslim family. They had the beards with the turbans, and then there was an Asian lady that was helping putting things in the boat, and a black serviceman. And I thought to myself, I said, first of all, this is Houston, and secondly, this isn't what people want to see. They want to keep us divided. They don't want to see this incredible diversity of neighbor helping neighbor. And me watching that scene and seeing, what really makes up Houston, now that we're the most diverse city in the nation, it really warmed my heart, and it really did restore my faith in humanity, because I was like, well, where are we going, with that stuff in Charlottesville? But then to see Houston, helping Houston out, I was like, oh, it's still here.
Yeah, we have a heart in this city. I think a lot of the hatred is imported from other places. I don't know that it's not directed here on purpose. I always say follow the money.
Okay.
So without getting into any type of conspiracy theories, I believe that Houstonians get along because we all live together. One product of no zoning is that mechanics live next door to millionaires, and we shop in the same places. We're the biggest small town in America. It seems like everybody's had somebody, that we share a lot of families and relationships. So that was a restorative event by the time it was over, as traumatic as it was.
Yeah.
And I don't think we can forget about the people who are still hurting. Our system is still backlogged from the cases that judges cannot try without adequate facilities and without a sustainable place to air our grievances, whether they're criminal, civil, or family. We got to have a sustainable courthouse. So it's a lot in terms of the disaster that we dealt with, but I think we showed the world that the Third Coast has never gotten the respect that we deserve.
Absolutely.
And East and West, they always have something to say about the Third Coast, but we are classically independent here in Houston.
Yes, Houston said, you know what, forget it, we'll do it ourselves.
We'll do it ourselves.
And they did. Listen, guys, we'll see you this Saturday, July 13th at HCC. At Acres Home at 6:30 West Little York for the Community Conversation Series with Harris County District Attorney Kim Ogg. I thank you so much for coming on. This is really like the highlight of my birthday week. One of the highlights of my birthday week. Yeah.
Hey, well, thanks for calming me down. When I come home and turn on the quiet storm, you are a friendly voice out there in the night. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And we'll see you guys Saturday. And thank you for listening to Access Houston.